Hi, everyone. I'm Karen McNeil, author of the Wine Bible and editor of the digital newsletter Wine Speed. And this is episode 2 of our 3-part series, The Champagne Life. Tonight, devoted to the subject of food and champagne, 2 things that all of us, I'm sure, love. And I want to thank you for being here. If this is the first time you're joining us, we're so happy you're here. And if you've been with us before, thank you for coming in tonight. So champagne and food is something that is very close to my heart. Many of you who may have watched this space before know that when I come home from work, or even if I'm still at work, come 5 or 6 o'clock, I drink a glass of champagne. And some nights I think, dinner's cooking, dinner's almost ready. Excuse me, why change? Why open a bottle of something else now? Why not just continue with this beautiful champagne? So that's our topic tonight. And with the possible exception of spaghetti and meatballs, I have to say champagne is pretty amazing and versatile. It's often just right. Let me tell you who is here with me. I'm so excited to have Michael Seward with me tonight. He's the director of Pops in Chicago, one of the oldest and most renowned wine bars in the entire United States. Michael, so happy to have you. Thank you for being here.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And what a nice accolade you bestow on Pops. That's really kind words.
It's so true though. And you know, our subject tonight, you and I both think about this a lot, is food and champagne, in a sense, just in time for Thanksgiving. So before we go there, though, I want to ask you, before we talk about any specifics, I want to ask you, as someone who possibly, my friend, drinks more champagne than I do, why do you think, what is it about champagne that makes it so good for such an enormous range of foods of so many different ethnic cuisines? Like what's the stuff there that allows that to happen?
I think it's sparkling style, and the diversity in and of the category itself lends it to a lot of different food styles, textures, flavors, and things like that. It's an extremely versatile wine, from demi-sec to zero dosage wines, from vintage to rosé. You really have a wide variety to explore with the world cuisine.
So true. You know, I'm just watching the chat here for a second. Hi, Greg Brewer. Hi, Chris Deb. I mean, it's just amazing. People are starting to jump on and add their thoughts. Yeah, I guess for me, I would say, Michael, it's, you know, when I think about champagne and food, I think about champagne's sort of central core, right? There's a sushi knife of acidity that cuts through any number of flavors, whether those flavors are tacos or a salad or an Asian, I don't know, stir fry. And that acidity, that sense that you're on a like a seesaw, right? You take a sip of the wine, makes you want to have a bite of the food makes you want to have a sip of the wine. I love that. You could go all night on that seesaw.
Yeah, 100%. It is the ultimate palate refresher. Every time you take a bite of food, that high acid runs in and cleanses your palate, refreshes you for the next bite. And like you said, it's a back and forth. It's a little seesaw between the two of them as you dine. It's really a beautiful experience.
Yeah, so let's and we're going to talk about texture in a minute, because I think texture is part of that. But you know, we promised everyone that we would talk about Thanksgiving, and I want to dive right in there because you know, if you're a journalist like me, that you get these questions every year, every Thanksgiving, like what's the one wine you should have with Thanksgiving? And it's a little bit hard to answer, because if you think of all the disparate elements in a Thanksgiving meal, right? Cranberry sauce, but kind of acid, something sweet, squash or sweet potatoes, gravy, poultry. Like there are 10 disparate ideas going on. So why for you, I'm assuming you're going to have some champagne on Thanksgiving.
every year.
Why do you think it works with all those disparate ideas?
Well, I think what I said, what I touched on earlier, the diversity of the ability with champagne, but also Thanksgiving is a celebration. And what wine speaks more to celebrations than champagne? Honestly, the popping of a bottle of champagne is a moment in and of itself. I think the anticipation, everybody's wondering, is the cork going to hit the wall? Is it, is this one going to be open right? Is there wine going anywhere? All of that is sort of like a great play on things. So Thanksgiving always reminds me of family being together and, having ultimate wines such as champagne. It always lends to the occasion. And also, I always found that Thanksgiving was a very difficult meal to pair the right wine with. There's so many different touches from, we're going to drink Riesling, or we're going to drink Burgundy, or we're going to have and I always felt like champagne was a no-brainer. You want to start every celebration with champagne, and then, like you said earlier, why not just keep going with it?
Man, I so agree with you. And by the way, I do want that t-shirt that you're wearing. I mean, who wants pearls when you could have your t-shirt? Man, I am wearing the wrong top. But there's another element here that I don't know. This may seem far-fetched, but it matters to me, which is, I think one element of champagne is its minerality, and sometimes minerality can present itself in a way that in a certain sense that salt does on food. It's it uplifts all the flavors around it. And when you think about poultry, when you think about chicken, turkey, who doesn't sprinkle a little bit of salt on their chicken, right? I feel so strongly that when you drink a high mineral wine like champagne with poultry, it's a little bit like sprinkling sea salt on the top of the chicken, in this case, turkey. It magnifies every flavor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's that sort of element of salinity that you get in a lot of champagne, as well as minerality, especially what we're tasting here today with the MOUSSÉ. There's just a beautiful amount of minerality in this wine that would really lend itself well to the turkey salting sort of thing. You're spot on with your words. It was put perfectly.
All right. Well, we have lots of people jumping on the chat. Thank you. Hi, Joy. Thanks for jumping on. Good to see you again. And I'd like to, I want to use this as a little bit of research. So if you have ideas about why you love champagne with food, or the specific foods that you love it with, let us know on the chat. We're watching. So Michael, before we get into these two wines, and we do have two incredibly exciting wines to talk about tonight, but let's just say no one's watching, right? It's late, you're home, you could have anything you want. It's not Thanksgiving, no big deal necessarily. What is your secret, like, champagne with idea?
Champagne with?
Don't take potato chips, because that's mine. I already got.
Well, I'm a salt freak, so for me it's always potato chips. But if it's just something around the house snacking, give me a sec, I'll think about it. But to like design a meal or order in, I'm like a sucker for fried chicken and champagne. And I know that's
fried chicken,
touching on everything that everybody loves, but it's just so darn good. It's got, I love good fried chicken. I didn't grow up in a household with eating good fried chicken. So when I finally experienced it as I was older, it was overwhelming. I didn't grow up in the deep South. I was on Long Island, New York. My mother was, we were eating a lot of things that were coming out of a can, just to put it kindly. But
well, fried chicken is rating high on the chat box right now. And Betty, thank you so much for mentioning dim sum. I feel like, I don't know, if the desert island food for me, dim sum, I could eat it breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And yeah, dim sum and champagne does not get better than that. Okay, so one thing I want to say before we jump into these wines, Michael, is I suppose when we're talking about Thanksgiving and pairing, people think, all right, what is the exact wine for this meal? But I want to share that when I have people over for dinner, I never serve one wine with a dish. I always have at a minimum 2 and sometimes 3 wines. So I think when you only set out one wine, then people think, all right, I guess I'm supposed to think that X goes perfectly with Y. But when you put out 2 wines and people can talk and taste and go back and forth, and it's a little bit more maybe generous and thoughtful and a little bit more the way the world works, because you never know what's going to strike someone as being just, perfect, exquisite right at that moment. So if anyone is thinking, I don't know, champagne all throughout Thanksgiving, we'll make champagne one of those glasses, put out 2 or 3 wines and see what bottle empties first.
Yeah, a good point. If you have the luxury of having more than one glass available per guest, it's always fun to be able to give people the option to choose their own adventure with the dish, to have the white and the red, or the champagne rosé and the champagne brut side by side, and let them sort of choose their own personal preference.
All right, we've got lots of stuff happening on the chat. Tracy's saying popcorn and champagne. Absolutely. Yeah, the more butter, the better, and the more salt, the better. Luciana, raw carrots. I have no doubt that you have a fantastic figure from having just champagne and raw carrots, my friend. Yeah, it's a diet tip for sure, Susan is saying. Champagne and lobster, Terrence is saying, oh yeah, okay, that's definitely, that's, and in fact, let's go there for a second, because that's a texture match, right? On the one hand, you have the succulence, the meatiness of the lobster, but the energy of the bubbles, and you can't separate champagne from its texture. For me, the texture of wine is sometimes almost more important than the actual flavors. How something feels. That's why, as an Irish person, I love mashed potatoes, right? How something feels is so fabulous. All right, let's go into these wines. Michael, we're going to taste first the MOUSSÉ. Let me hold this up to the camera. The lighting is a little hard. Let me see if I can get it better. There we go. MOUSSÉ is a grower, and there are, of course, in Champagne, what are called houses, the larger firms, usually grower champagnes, and then co-op champagnes. And all 3 of these entities have access to great vineyards. MOUSSÉ happens to be a small family grower champagne that has been in business for a long time, since the mid-1700s. And both you and I, Michael, were remarking on the fact that this is a Blanc de Meuniers, kind of in a sense a Blanc de Noir. Meuniers is the clone of Pinot Noir. So instead of Pinot Noir, it's Pinot Meunier. It's a very rare wine, though. Tell us your thoughts about this wine.
It's incredible. It's a single village wine. So the vines of the village, which the village is known, I think it's planted with about 70% Meunier. And it really, this particular village has a unique geological formation of green clay that lends a lot of minerality that you don't get in the rest of Champagne. I'm not in the rest, in the Marne Valley. And this particular bottle, I think, is showing that minerality strongly. It's really balanced fruit, great mineral drive, good tension. And for something that was aged on cork, Surlat, so you've got a little bit of that microoxygenation. It's drinking really perfectly right now.
I want to ask you something, but first I want to I want to compliment June Jacobs for saying, hello, Hanukkah is coming, and champagne is perfect with latkes. And yeah, that would be a great combination for sure. Tell me, back to what you were just saying, tell me what you mean by, I think I know, but I want to hear you say it. What do you mean by drive? What is it, when a wine has drive, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think for me, it's an experience of something that has a vision and focus, meaning it has tension. There's sort of a direction it's going in. It's not where maybe the Comte de Champagne that we'll taste next is a little broader and richer on the palate. This really holds sort of the spine. It has structure and drive. You know, it's real. The minerality sort of directs the vision of this wine. I hope that helps.
Yeah, one of the things that we all know, everyone who's listening, and you and me too, is that wine it's almost impossible sometimes to put into words, right? Even if you're, I don't know, someone who lays awake at night like me, trying to put wine into words, so elusive, so hard to do. But I know what you mean. There's a sense that every molecule in the wine is lined up on the same trajectory. There's no static. Everything is precise. It is, one winemaker once said to me, it's like looking down a long road and your eye never gets distracted. You can see this long road. And in this sense, you feel this long road of flavor. So yeah, drive, I get it. Let me talk about MOUSSÉ for a second. Let me see, where are we here? I mentioned that it was founded in 1750, and it's a grower champagne. And the wine has a sense of precision. These are beautiful vineyards in the Vallée du Marne, which is well known for of all of Champagne's specific 5 areas for the Meuniers grape. What's surprising to me a little bit about this wine and remarkable is that sometimes Pinot Meunier is, I don't know, it's given a little bit of a lesser status sometimes than Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. You have only to taste this wine to realize, oh my God, is that not right? This wine has every bit of, as you say, tension, this sense of energy between fruit and acid, as any great champagne. I think it's spectacular.
Yeah, great balance, great balance.
The soil here, much of what is made, many, let me say it this way, many of the great champagnes are of course on limestone soil. This is on schist, which is a very different, related to slate. It's a wholly different type of soil. But if anyone who's listening to us loves Mosel Riesling is on slate. This is another type of soil that gives you this sense of exactness and singularity. I'm going to use your word, drive. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, lots of people are having the MOUSSÉ. Let's go to, oh, you know what? I do want to say one last thing, is that MOUSSÉ farms organically, very important, important for the health of the planet, important to us as drinkers, and in fact, virtually biodynamically. And that this is a brut nature, spelled like nature, meaning 0% dosage. Having no dosage is not necessarily better than having some dosage. It just means that the grapes themselves, the flavor of the terroir itself, needed nothing, right? It was the beauty of this vineyard, these vineyards, this grape at this ripeness level. Quite beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, can we go to the Comte de Champagne?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Michael, jump in at any moment here.
So
and,
oh no. I was going to say earlier I started to, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Let me hold up this Comte de Champagne for a second. I'm sorry. I have not the most perfect lighting tonight, but yes, go ahead.
So I was going to tell you earlier that the Comte de Champagne Rosé, vintage 1985, was the wine that turned me around at my job at Pops. We are a small champagne bar in Chicago for the last 40 years. And when I had first started, I was very young. It was back in the 1990s, probably like 1996. And we were allowed to drink champagne freely at the end of work. And I would always be like, nah, this is okay. You know, I
A
had
lot of resumes are coming to you, by the way,
gosh.
having said that.
And then we
Okay, go
celebrated
ahead.
we celebrated the birthday one night with mine with this particular bottle, but it was the 85 vintage. And it was my aha light bulb moment with champagne. And ever since then, you talk about drive, it's been very focused.
All right, well, Taittinger is, of course, one of the great houses of Champagne, one of the 360 houses in Champagne, well known. And Comte de Champagne, which is the name of this wine, is a prestige cuvée. Prestige cuvées, sometimes called tête de cuvées, are any producer's top of the line wines. So this is Comte de, first of all, from a great house. Second of all, their prestige cuvée, and third of all, their rosé. And rosé usually makes up only 2 to about maybe 10% of any producer's wines for the year. So we're really drinking at the height here. And I want to say that one of the first seminal experiences I had with champagne was to have rosé champagne with poultry. For the champenoise themselves, they often serve rosé with poultry. There's a little, I don't know, a little bit more gravitas, richness, poultry with lots of gravy, stuffing. It's just, this is lining up like Thanksgiving for me. What about you?
100%. Yeah, this wine, when I opened it up probably about 20 minutes before we got on, just to give it a quick taste, proof it, and make sure everything was working right. And it came out like thunder. I mean, it was very, very big, beautiful. I mean, not to stress that there was a lack of elegance. It just had such broad breadth. It was really big and rich and coating. And to think of something like, you know, poultry or, you know, turkey for Thanksgiving's sake, duck, even you mentioned lobster earlier, you know, richer style of foods, it really would pair well. This is a beautiful, beautiful wine. This is an exceptional cuvée.
Yes, this is from all Grand Cru vineyards. And, you know, it may be tempting to think that all rosés are from red grapes, either Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier, excuse me. But not the case, right? This wine is 30% Chardonnay, 70% Pinot Noir, because of course you can make a rosé with any kind of ratio of white and red grapes. I came across, when I was thinking about this wine, I came across this quote from the great Russian ballet dancer Rudolf Nureyev, who said, "When I drink Comte de Champagne Rosé, I no longer dance, I fly." Well, all right. I mean, none of us are ballet dancers, but we can imagine that. This is also always a vintage wine. The wine that we're drinking is a 2007. 2007, that's a while ago. So Michael, talk to us about how you think about champagne's aging and what you, not just do you think it ages, I'm sure you think it does, but what you think it does to the flavor.
Oh, it richens it up for sure. A lot of layers development, a lot of layer development over time for champagne, especially with, you know, wine with this pedigree coming from all Grand Cru Chardonnay from the Côte de Blanc and all Grand Cru Pinot Noir from up in the Montagne. These are some of the most heralded vineyards that they're drawing grapes from, and these wines have the ability to last a very long time. Hence, the release, I think over 10 years on lees is the minimum that a wine of this status for Comte de Champagne Rosé would spend on lees. These wines have exceptional length to them.
You know, there have only been 35 vintages. Actually,
yeah, in 70 years.
In 70 years, it's astounding. Or or maybe not, right? Maybe this is an expensive wine. It perhaps shouldn't be made every year. It should be a very exceptional flavor and something that is not easily imitatable. It is, as you say, this beautiful result, which is unpredictable, actually, of 10 years of aging. It's the most amazing thing that a winery could hold on to a wine, not just for 10 years, but 10 years on its lees.
Yeah.
It's and the fact that we can taste that moment in time, like right now, you and I, and some people who are watching with us too, or who will this weekend or by Thanksgiving, you're tasting a moment in time. You're tasting 2007. It's only wine can do that, right?
Yeah, you're tasting the vision of the chef de cave Dupont from, from 2007. I mean, you're talking the 15, if I have my abacus out, 15 years ago, this guy had a vision for this wine, and it's, according to me, it's worked out perfectly. It's really good. Yeah, it's an incredible result. I mean, they've had a change of chef de cave in the last few years. So this wine is actually from the previous chef de cave who was at TAITTINGER for a very long time. And this wine is just chef's kiss, unbelievable.
I want to talk about, ask you a question in a minute, but I want to talk about this concept that you said about length, because we all understand, I think, length to be what happens at the end of a wine. But I believe that there's what I call interstitial length, that a great wine is often long all the way through its choreography on your palate. So from sensory point A to sensory point B, from B to C, C to D, great wines are really drawn out. And if you're paying attention, which sometimes requires that, like, okay, stop talking to me right now, let me pay attention to this wine. You see this incredible length all the way through the wine. And then by the time it gets to the end, it's of course long, because we know that one of the great hallmarks of great wine is length. No one knows where length comes from. You cannot, as a producer, create length. You can't decide that you're going to plant a vineyard, have a wine, and by the way, it's going to be long. It doesn't work that way. Nobody knows. We only know the reverse. We know that great wines have length. So what I love about this wine is it's very, I guess the word that comes to mind is languorous, right? You're like, oh man, you're just in a hammock or something, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm trying hard here, excuse me, because I'm a word person.
You are quite a wordsmith. I would say you're quite a wordsmith. Yeah. This wine, it attacks you with like freshness on the start, and then finishes with layered, deep, rich flavors. So it's almost like drinking two different wines on your palate. It starts out with a different sort of freshness on the front palate, and then the lengthy finish and how layered it is. It's kind of incredible. There's so many different
I
layers.
love those two words. Oh, Michael, I love those two words. Freshness, so important, and layered. Let's talk about that for 1 second, because freshness is more than acid. I think it was Betty who said, I'd love this wine with dim sum. And that's reminding me about this sort of Asian concept of coolness, which is different than temperature. Like a cucumber in Asian thinking, right? A cucumber is a cool flavor, even if that cucumber is at room temperature. So champagne has this cooling effect, freshness. It's really beautiful, and it's enlivening. It's what gives champagne some of its sense of energy and snappiness and raciness and aliveness. And then at the same time to have these layers of flavor. Oh, okay. I'm sorry you guys aren't here with me and Michael. We're dying of happiness here.
Right? Entirely. And I think that this lends true to the entire idea of pairing this with something with Thanksgiving, having this wine as appropriate it is for today. It would be even more appropriate on Thanksgiving. This wine the freshness that's provided in the beginning of this wine when you first sip it is the cleanse that you would look for on a champagne to deliver to give your palate an awakening. And then the layered and depth and sort of these like richer secondary notes coming out as the wine moves on are the things that would stand up to the turkey, the maybe a slice of dark meat with a little bit of gravy. I mean, really just killer stuff.
Yeah. So Daryl asked a little bit earlier if we have a magnum. This is not a magnum. I'm going to hold up this Comte de Champagne bottle again, maybe just because of the room I'm in. And sorry, I'm coming to you from the Hudson Valley of New York. I'm on a book tour for Wine Bible 3, the third edition. It looks like a magnum. Michael just held it up as well. It's this old, very ancient shape that champagne bottles used to have in the early 1800s. This is not a magnum, but Comte de Champagne by Magnum, oh my. Would that be, yeah, delicious. And one thing we know about Champagne and Magnum, I think it's pretty axiomatic. I'm sure, Michael, you'll agree that Champagne and Magnum ages even more slowly and longer than Champagne in 750s. So if you have a Magnum of a wine like this, of a great house, you can probably keep it even longer. It's funny, it doesn't scale up exactly. Champagne and Magnum is pretty remarkable. The only bad thing about Champagne in Magnum, Daryl, is that you need two people to drink it.
No, you don't, Daryl.
Okay, there you go. All right, he said it, not me. Okay, so Michael, I have to ask you because I don't know if you noticed, but I put the MOUSSÉ, I have the MOUSSÉ here, in a standard, tulip-shaped glass, flute really. And then I decided to put the Comte de Champagne just in a white wine glass. And it's pretty nice that the rigidity of glassware has broken down a bit. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are about glasses in terms of great champagnes like the Taittinger or like the MOUSSÉ.
Great champagnes, without a doubt, deserve great glassware. There is a reason that people are creating exceptional stemware, and it serves its purpose. And I promise you, the next time, if you're a doubter, the next time you go to a local tasting and you're going to drink champagne, bring a flute and bring a wine glass. Even if it's just a miniature all-purpose wine glass that you have at home that you're not worried about breaking, you'll just experience a different sort of arc on the wine. You have a little bit more nose to work with. And I think we all know that this is where the majority of our work is done with drinking wine, is right here on the nose. People always say, I work at like I said, at a bar where we're serving champagne or a lounge for many years. And I have certain people that when they get really exceptional bottles of champagne will, as they sip their last sip, you'd come over and say, may I take that out of your way? And somebody will say, no, I'm just going to smell the glass for a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. In all of the great restaurants of the world, they never take away your empty glass because they know that really that there's still a lot of sensory enjoyment there. You just want to smell the glass. It's straight to the lizard brain, right? It's very archetypal, very sexy, very wonderful.
Yeah, especially when you buy a bottle of
all-purpose glass. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
I just said, especially when you spend the money on something like Comte de Champagne Rosé, you should enjoy every last drop.
Really well put, because we talked about this earlier before we went on tonight, that champagne is somewhat wrongly categorized as only, not somewhat, totally wrongly categorized as only for special occasions and very expensive. I live in California, not there right this moment, but there are a lot of California Chardonnays at $60 a bottle. I can buy champagne at $40 a bottle. And remember, that's just $8 a glass, right? Because there are 5 glasses of wine in every bottle. So I don't know, at the end of the night, do you want to give yourself $8 of something fantastic? At least in my office and in my house, we say, yeah, we are definitely going for that. The MOUSSÉ and the TAITTINGER are both a little bit more expensive than that. The MOUSSÉ a little bit more expensive. The TAITTINGER, because it's rosé and because it is a prestige cuvée, the Comtes de Champagne, is admittedly very pricey. So it's not your every night champagne, although I have some every night champagnes. This is maybe more worthy, as you were saying earlier, of Thanksgiving or just a moment. Doesn't have to be a big holiday, but just a moment that you want to recognize and demarcate as worthy of a great wine. There it is. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty. I think my computer stopped charging. I apologize.
No problem. Daryl is saying, by the way, on the chat, a day of life is worth celebrating. Thank you so much, Daryl, for that thought, because that is so true.
A guy who works at a champagne bar could not agree more. A Tuesday, it needs nothing more than it just being a Tuesday.
Certainly doesn't. So I want to say on this topic of glassware, right? And I hold up the two glasses I'm working with. I would never be unhappy if someone poured me a glass of champagne, as you see in many restaurants, in a flute like this. This has become quite standard in America. But in many restaurants now, especially restaurants with, I don't know, possibly more avant-garde sommeliers, as Michael is demonstrating, don't be surprised if you're poured a great champagne in something that it resembles more of a white wine glass. A lot of the research on this comes from the University of Reims, one of the main cities in the Champagne region, and it looks at what causes champagne to be so flavorful. And part of what causes champagne to be so flavorful is its aroma. So the theory behind using more of a white wine glass is that you can actually swirl the glass. It's pretty hard to swirl a flute, right? I mean, it's a little hard, and you don't have enough surface area to really smell the wine. But with a white wine glass or something approximating this, you can swirl, and therefore you can smell the wine. And everybody knows that so much of a wine's appeal, just like the person you love, it's part of their appeal is how it smells. So that's the theory about different glassware. And I'm sure it would be fun on Thanksgiving to pour some champagne. As Michael said, pour it into different glasses, let the conversation roll and see what different people think. Hannah is saying, Zalto glass fan here. Hannah, you probably have some real money, my friend, if you're using Zalto glasses. I love them too, but they're about $70 a stem, but they are exquisite. Oh, are you using Zalto glasses? Michael.
I am a Zalto Universal guy, and where I am employed at Pops, we, for exceptional cuvées, will bring over a Zalto Universal.
Yeah. All right. Well, I promised you earlier, I'm coming to Pops soon, because it is such a fantastic place for champagne. And a Gabriel glass, Tracy is saying, another great glass is Gabriel glass. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I designed my own line of glassware too, but it's not as expensive as either Gabriel or Zalto, and I love those glasses. So for us for tonight, though, we want to thank you for joining us, and thank you for thinking about how beautiful champagne is and how incredibly appropriate it is with all kinds of foods, and perhaps on the cusp of Thanksgiving, how appropriate it is when you are celebrating we are all celebrating all the things that we're thankful for and all the friends and family that we're thankful for. So Michael, a toast to you. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Gosh, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure to be a part of this. Thank you.
My pleasure. And thank all of you for joining me tonight. We will see you soon on the next Case with Karen Live. For now, I'm Karen McNeil. Thank you.
Santé.